first thing that I'm going to have you do is I have some lists of words that I want you to read one at a time. Some of the words are going to be easy for you and some that I expect to be very hard. But don't worry, you're not expected to know all of them. If you don't know a word right away, try your best to figure it out, but I can't help you in any way, and I can't tell you whether you're right or wrong. Just do your best. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so here are, I'm going to have you start with this column, and then I want you just to go to this column next. Okay, you don't have to do the third column.
Okay. Start?
Mhm.
Okay. Sewed, controlled, championships, possessions, moisture, memories, abolish, pyramids, emerge, temperature, humidity, insistent, irrigated, thrived, slavery, evaporate, classified, preserved, fashioned, courageous, businesswoman, settlement, infrared, fusion, nubula, emulate, articulate, encyclopedia, persecution, inevitable, gravity, nuclear, assimilate, rifling, helium, migration, immigrants, miserable, bursts, oppressed.
Nice job. Okay, so based on that, I am going to have you read a passage for me. And the passage that I'm going to have you read is right here. Before we start to read it, though, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions to generate background knowledge to see if you know about any of the ideas in the text.
Okay.
So the first question I have for you is, who was Abraham Lincoln?
He was the 16th president of the United States, and he's on the penny.
What are the evils of slavery?
That the person who is the slave, they have no control of what they do in their life. The person who's controlling them does, or tells them what they do.
Why was the Civil War fought?
The Civil War was fought because Japan and I think was it Great Britain didn't agree on things.
What were the results of the Civil War?
That the results on the Civil War was that a lot of people died, like all the wars. That I think slavery stopped.
Okay, so now you're going to show me how well you can read on your own. Because my job is to make sure that I remember all the things that you do as a reader, I'm going to write notes and record this, and this will make sure that I don't miss any of the great things that you're doing. Since this is your time to show me who you are as a reader, I can't give you any hints or any help. If you come to a word you don't know, just do your best and keep on going. Do you understand so far?
Yes.
Okay, when you're done reading, I'll ask you to retell what you read. Your job is to pretend that I didn't hear you read this or that I don't know the selection, so tell me as much as you can. After you tell me all you can remember, I will ask you some questions. Again, pretend that I don't know anything about the selection, so tell me all that you can. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, the first selection is called Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
And you can start now.
Okay. When Abraham Lincoln was 19 years old, he visited the city of New Orleans. He saw things he would never forget. He saw black people being sold in slave markets. They were chained together and treated like animals. Lincoln watched little children being sold to strangers and taken away from their parents. Lincoln was heartbroken, and these memories stayed with him for the rest of his life. Although slavery was allowed in many states of the Union, Lincoln believed that it was wrong, and he was not afraid to say so. In 1858, Lincoln ran for the United States Senate against Stephen Douglas. There was much talk about slavery. Should the owning of slaves be allowed in states that were just coming to the Union? Douglas said that the decision to own slaves was up to each individual person. Lincoln said that the slavery must be allowed to spread because it was wrong. But he knew that it would not be easy to end slavery in those states that had allowed it for so many years. Lincoln believed it was important to keep the United States strong. He felt that slavery weakened the country. In one speech, he said, the country could not last half slave and half free. He said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Lincoln lost the election to the Senate, but he became well known for his views. In 1860, he ran for president of the United States. The slave states opposed Lincoln as president. They did not want to abolish slavery. They threatened to leave the Union if Lincoln was elected. When he became president, the slave states carried out their threat. A terrible war broke out between the northern and southern states. At times, members of the same family were fighting against one another. In 1863, Lincoln gave an order called the Emancipation Proclamation, which ended slavery. The war finally ended 2 years later. The southern states once more became part of the Union, but slavery was no longer allowed. No more would little children be torn from their parents and sold to strangers. Abraham Lincoln had achieved his goal.
Nice job. Okay, so now go ahead and retell anything you can remember to me as though I have no idea what you just read.
Okay, Abraham Lincoln was 19 years old, and he saw black people getting little kids and people and tearing them apart from their families. And he was heartbroken by it, and he would never forget that day, and he wanted to fix slavery. So he ran for Senate in the Union against Douglas, and he didn't win against them, but then in 1862, in the 1800s, he ran for president, and the countries who that had slavery did not want him to be president because they still wanted to have the slavery in those countries. So when he won, they threatened him to leave the Union, and a huge war broke out, and it ended that slavery was not allowed in any of the countries, and his goal was achieved.
Okay. So what was Abraham Lincoln's main goal?
To end slavery in all the countries.
Name one thing that Abraham Lincoln saw in the slave markets of New Orleans.
Little kids getting torn apart from their families.
How did the sights of the slave market influence Abraham Lincoln's later life?
He wanted to run for the Senate, but he lost, but then he ran for the president. So when he won either one of those, he would end the slavery everywhere in the world.
What office did Abraham Lincoln run for against Douglas?
The Senate.
What did the southern states threaten to do if Abraham Lincoln was elected president?
They threatened to leave the Union.
Why did the southern states oppose Abraham Lincoln as president?
Because they wanted to keep the slavery and he wanted to end it.
How did Abraham Lincoln's prediction, "A house divided against itself cannot stand," come true?
Because when he won to be president, that phrase was to end slavery. So not all the countries are half slavery and half free. So he wanted to end it with everybody being free.
What did the Emancipation Proclamation do?
I think when it threatened for the countries to leave, it had them stay, but it still ended the slavery in those countries.
Okay, that's it. Great, nice job. Thank you.